Hello everyone. This is your favorite Murtad live once again, and today we have our beloved guest Lloyd with us. Brother Lloyd, how are you doing, brother?
Everyone, thank you, Adam. I'm always grateful to be on your channel. Great to be here and well, thank you.
Brother, you always show us such nice topics. I am a little breathless today. I will not be speaking much today because of my current condition, and a lot of people know that I'm not feeling well from the last couple of days. And thank you that you'll be speaking and I'll be listening anyways. So
Okay, no, understood. Understood.
so we
Yeah.
have a few people in the live chat already. God bless everyone. Dragana Tenaris, David, Gadlia, Juliet, and Rai, Brother Rai, and just and so many others that I can see right now. Jane and everyone. God bless you all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Please share. Get everyone here because the most important thing is that this is the most spoken thing in current Islamic world. They proclaim that Paul started Christianity, but did it? They speak that uh, Paul was not a true Christian. They they raise all different kind of finger pointing on Paul, and we will have to see, is that anyway near to what the Islam teaches or early scholars of Islam tells us about. So the mic is yours, brother. May the
Okay.
Lord bless you and may the Holy Spirit guide you and guide your tongue to utter the words in such a way that it will go into the hearts and minds of these Muslimin and they would comprehend and understand. And may your words enlighten the Christians so that when they speak with these Muslimin, they will speak with courage and references so that they will enlighten those. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Yeah, everyone. So thank you again for having me on the channel. Hello, everyone. Please pray for Adam for his speedy recovery so that he is healthy and able to be back with his family, his work, and of course with his ministry as soon as possible with as much strength as possible. Okay, guys, so today we're going to talk about the Apostle Paul, or um, King Paul, sorry, King Paul, Paul the King of the Jews, as the very, very important Islamic scholars would have us know. And we're going to learn a lot of interesting things, very wrong, very laughable things about the St. Paul that Islamic scholars were teaching through the centuries. So we're going to go through the history of why they attacked St. Paul, how they attacked him in the beginning, and how they attack him now, so that we're going to get to the bottom of this. People on my channel have seen me discuss this before, so tonight I hope to bring it to this new audience and with more depth. And yes, so let me begin. If there's any questions, please drop them in the chat. I will try to pay attention. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. So let me get to that, and we'll start. Okay,
About
and should be coming up any second. Okay, guys, I want to start with this that you see in front of you. This is from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. It's the word rhetoric. Now, rhetoric, it says here, language that is impressive sounding, but not meaningful or sincere. In other words, lies, right? So rhetoric, according to Merriam-Webster dictionary, language that is impressive sounding, but not meaningful. It means nothing, and it is not sincere. Okay, so it is not truthful. It is in effect the opposite of truthful, right? In this example. Okay, and if you have any questions, let me know. So now I'm going to go to the Encyclopedia of Islam, the Brill Encyclopedia of Islam, and here we have the word adab. Now notice that whenever Muslims want to talk to you, whenever you want to have a chat about something, they always say, let us have a debate. And now I'm going to explain why they say this. Okay, there's a reason that they say, let's have a debate. Because in Islam, notice rhetoric is a science. Okay? So, in other words, the art of being impressive sounding but insincere is in Islam a science. Any comments from you, Adam? Or unless you want me to continue and you save your voice.
Yeah, yeah, please. Which source is this? I just missed that.
The Brill Encyclopedia of Islam.
Oh, that's. Oh, wow. Oh,
This is
wow.
the Brill. This is the gold standard of Islamic academic studies. It costs you roughly $40,000 to buy a copy of this. Okay. Now, so let's look at this here. Adab al-Jadal. In theology and law, a method of debating, which is why Muslims always want to debate. They never want to discuss, they want to debate, in which we discussed questions that were controversial. And of course, questions of Islam versus Christianity are always controversial. It is not a matter of finding the truth, but of convincing the opponent.
Wow.
Notice,
By the way, by the
yeah,
name, the people who knows Arabic, they already know by name it says Adabul al-Dajjal. Dajjal is by default liar, a liar. So Adabul
no way,
al-Dajjal, that this the debate of lies, in other words. So you know,
no,
in Islam, the Antichrist is called Masih
Dajjal,
al-Dajjal. Masih al-Dajjal. So
no
wow,
way.
that is crazy, man.
Oh man, so understand Muslims want to debate so they can lie to you, they can manipulate and persuade and convince. I will go back to the very first definition from Merriam-Webster. It says language that is impressive sounding but not meaningful and not sincere. Okay? Now I'm going to give a final definition. Let's look at madhab. We know these as the schools of Sunni jurisprudence, or the schools of. Let's look at madhab. Oh, by the way, let me do one more thing. Let me go back here first. Notice also that adab is a synonym of hiyal, stratagems in war. Hiyal is a form of deceit, deception, right? Hiyal is deception in Islam. Understand?
Absolutely.
You've heard of taqiyya. This is more advanced, much more advanced than taqiyya. Understand? Hiyal is deception. So this adab, right? This debate is deception. Now I'm going to go to one more definition. We're going to look at madhab, a way of thinking, persuasion, because rhetoric is persuasion, right? To convince someone, right? Using fine sounding words that are insincere. So notice madhab al hadara. Okay, so actually, no, this is a different story. I'll come to this another time. The Platinian scheme of dynamic emanation. Okay, brief diversion. Plotinus was a second century Greek or Roman scholar that hated Christianity. He was a pagan. He was a philosopher, and he created a vision of God, the supreme God, that is almost identical to Allah, right? Almost identical to Allah. And Islam recognizes the madhab of Plotinus. Understand, they've stolen this idea from Plotinus, who created their vision of Allah. Well, I've done that in a different show. But notice, a madhab is a way of thinking, a way of indoctrination or persuasion. So I wanted to leave that thought with you. And if you have any comments, let me know. But then now I will start on the presentation. Do you have any thoughts, Adam, before
So
I go on?
the thinking of a person through or according to a person who is a liar.
Yes, yes. Basically, that's what this boils down to. I understand. So I just wanted to give people a brief introduction to this. So now let me start on this show. So polemics. Okay, it's a play on the word polemics, but polemics. Islam versus Saint Paul. So let me begin. Okay, these are some of the major sources. I haven't yet shared them with Adam, so I will provide a link to every one of the sources that I'm using here. I will make that available after the show. This, I've read through a couple of hundred pages of very, very detailed scholarly documents, detailed research into early Islam from the 8th to the 14th and 15th centuries. Okay, so we're looking at from roughly the 8th to the 14th century, detailed research into what the early Islamic scholars were writing about Christianity, especially Saint Paul. So you can see some of the books. The most important one is this one, The Islamic Image of Paul and the Origin of the Gospel of Barnabas by P.S. van Koningsveld. Brilliant stuff. This is also really interesting. This is to do with tahrif, which is the Islamic accusation that the Bible has been corrupted. So this is one aspect of the research that I'm doing onto tahrif, and hopefully opening up a whole new avenue of knowledge into this subject. So, so this is Islam part one. So Islam is the religion of deceit, as we saw, right? There's a polemics part two, which we'll try and get to, and I'm busy writing and working on part three right now, which is the positive to neutral evidence, where the Muslim scholars speak about St. Paul. But now we're going to look at the very negative things that they say. So, in this exciting episode today, we are going to learn how Muslim historians and scholars make the claim that Paul was the king of the Jews. And they quite literally confuse Paul with King Saul, who was the king of Israel before David, right?
So, okay, let me fix three things over here.
Mm-hmm.
You never said anything about 7th century, so you never find a source of the 7th century about Islam.
I don't think so, no. Looking at the 8th century. Yeah.
Yes, because literally speaking, you will not find any source written in the 7th century of Islam. This whole century is like vanished out of thin air.
Yeah,
Uh,
actually, good point.
then we will see some of the late 8th century sources, and you are saying even in those sources, when the Bible says Saul, because Paul's name before he accepted
But Saul,
Christ was Saul, so they confuse that Saul with the King Saul,
Saul,
which is
yes,
hundreds of years before Christ.
yes, yes, they did. Yes, they did. I will
Wow.
show that.
Just like they confuse Maryam with Maryam of Moses' sister.
Correct. And I will get into that story. I will cover all of that. So I'll continue. Other things we will learn. We will learn how Islamic scholars claimed that Christians followed Islam for 81 years after Jesus died. Okay, this is not from no-name scholars. This is from serious, important scholars of each century, as I will go through. And these are the claims that their top scholars made. It shows how either dishonest or completely and utterly ignorant, laughably ignorant, their scholars were. We're going to learn how the Islamic scholars claim that Paul was a wicked Jew who committed suicide to destroy Christianity, a wicked Jew who killed himself for Christ to destroy the Christian faith. We're going to learn how the Islamic scholars say that Paul, who was a good Christian, influenced the Romans to kill the Jews. So he was a wicked Jew who killed himself to destroy Christianity, but he was a good Christian who tried to get the Romans to kill all the Jews. Then we're going to learn how the Christians never thought that Jesus was divine, but Paul taught this. We will learn that Paul invented the concept and the doctrine of the Trinity, and how Paul is responsible for the Crusades. And the Crusades was an effort by the European kings to defend Paul's lies, because they knew that Paul had lied. They knew that Paul had corrupted the Bible, and the Muslims were going to reveal this in Europe. So the Crusader kings, the European kings, had to attack the Muslims to stop them from revealing this truth to
Okay,
everyone
okay,
and
sorry,
destroying
sorry,
the
sorry.
faith. Yes.
You confused me. You know how many heresies you are actually mentioning in just one slide?
Dude, this is all true. I'm not kidding you. I wish I was kidding. It's all true.
So it's unbelievable. Like, okay, so how can somebody kill himself to destroy Christianity? Like, what kind of a zeal a person would have to kill himself to destroy Christianity?
Yeah,
Why would
yeah.
he do such a thing? Number one. And Paul, the good Christian, influenced the Rome to destroy the Jews. Like, these are like two contradictory things in itself again.
Are you
And then,
confusing me with the facts again?
okay, oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. Logic
You
does
can.
not work with Islam. I forgot that part.
Sorry, this is seriously, I'm going to go through all of this in detail. We're going to learn about all of this, and I'm going to share the resources after the show. And you will learn how Muslims saved Christ's true teachings. How a Muslim saved Christ's true teaching.
Wallahi. Awesome.
Yes, yes. And we're going to get into all of that today. So we're going to let's start from the beginning. In Galatians 1, so we learn that Paul is set apart as a defender of the Christian faith. Paul is set apart from the other apostles because we learn that Paul is an apostle not from human beings. He was chosen by God himself. He was chosen by Jesus, right? So he was chosen through Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised Jesus from the dead, as he says in Galatians 1. And Paul warns us there are some who wish to pervert the gospel of Christ. So Paul comes with a strong message. He stands apart from those who were selected by councils or by people. Jesus chose Paul to represent the faith and to spread the faith to the pagans. And two, Paul warns others will try to pervert the faith. Now, in 1 Timothy 4, we learn, Paul says that now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. So Paul warns us, do not depart from the message of the Bible. The message of the Bible is true. And Paul is also very clear, we are justified by faith in Christ, not by works. Now, I have in brackets alone. Now, of course, if you're a good Christian, you want to do good works. You want to glorify God through pure actions, through good works, because by your works, we will know you. If your heart is pure, you want to do pure deeds, right? However, we don't believe that works will get us to heaven. We're not a works-based faith like Islam is. We are justified by faith. Paul teaches this. And so Paul does not depart from the other apostles. Your thoughts, Adam, before I continue?
No, brother, absolutely, absolutely. Because a lot of people, you actually cleared it. This is the right point. Because a lot of Muslims comes in and say, "Oh, so you are saved by Christ alone, so you don't need to do good things. So all of your sins are forgiven. You just keep on sinning. You have a free pass to sin." So
No.
thank you for explaining that, because this is a very, very important point which is always brought up, that according to Paul, now you can do all kind of sins that you want to. So thank you for clearing that.
Okay, no, you're welcome. So now notice there is Islamic reframing. They reframe arguments using rhetoric, that rhetoric I spoke of, and they make word games. So as you know, Moses, Jesus, and all the biblical prophets were Muslims, according to Islam, right? And they all practiced Islam. So Moses, Jesus, and all the prophets were Muslims who practiced Islam. And the holiness that emanated from them was Muhammad's light, because Muhammad was made from the essence of Allah. He was one in essence with Allah. Sounds familiar, like someone we know. And a piece of Muhammad was taken out and divided into Adam and Noah and Moses and Abraham and David and Jesus and all the prophets. And this was the holiness within them, right? This is what Islam teaches, as we've discussed in the past. However, what they mean when you start to research, when they talk about tahrif, when they speak of Muslims, that all the previous prophets before, because remember, Islam was invented under Muhammad. There was no Islam prior. So what they mean is that Muslims, these were monotheists. That's what they mean. When they say they were Muslims, they mean they were monotheists. And when they say Islam, they mean a form of monotheism predating Christianity. So Christianity is the violation, it's the deviation, right? This is their word game. And they claim that Moses received an Islamic scripture called the Torah. Okay? The Torah is technically just 5 books within the Old Testament, not the entire one. And they claim that Jesus received, he was given. God said, here, Jesus, here's your book. Here you go. But we know this is not the story. We know that one, Jesus is the gospel. He is the good news. And two, the gospel as documents were written after his death. So it was written about him. It wasn't the book he was given and he gave it to people. No. So they tell a false story to begin with. And finally, their religious communities, the Muslims claim that suppressed the religion of Jesus and altered the text. So in other words, the Christian and Jewish religious communities suppressed the religion of Jesus. They altered the text, but certain believers stayed true. Certain believers kept the message. And any comment from you, Adam, before I go on?
Do we have the names of those certain believers?
We're going to get into that. Yes, we'll get into that. So Yaqut al-Hamawi, a scholar from 1179 to the 13th century, he claimed to know of a Jewish convert who had an original uncorrupted Torah. Of course, if the Muslims could produce this would be fantastic, so we could see this original uncorrupted Torah. So they were making these claims back then already, but they cannot produce the evidence. Okay, so William Muir, let's have a look at what he has to say. He was a very well-known 19th century scholar on Islam. And he wrote this book, the Quran, and its composition and teaching, and the testimony it bears to the Holy Scriptures. When you look at the Islamic dilemma and the arguments Muslims present and the defense that the Quran makes of the Bible, this is the best book on the subject I've seen. This is the best. And he says, what a mighty difference between the Prophet of Islam and his followers of the present time. Muhammad professed to make the sacred scriptures of the Old and New Testaments the foundation of his claims and his pillar of support when attacked. But his followers spend their days in an impious attempt to subvert the authority of those very scriptures. And he noted this in the 1870s already. So Muhammad would say, but look in the Bible, look in your Torah, look in your Injil. You will find support for what I am claiming for the Quran, right? However, we know that these documents, these books contradict what's in the Quran. Muhammad didn't know because we know that Muhammad did not have a New Testament gospel at the time. So now I'll get into that as we go. So Muslims rely on the Bible. Now Muslims filter the Bible through the Quran, certainly, but the Quran is filtered through their scholars, and we're going to learn the incredibly false stories their scholars tell. So it's not what the Quran says, it's what the scholars say the Quran says. So let's examine Muslim claims of Christian New Testament and Old Testament biblical scripture falsification or corruption, known as tahrif, from the 8th to the 14th century in relation to St. Paul. Now, let's look at a scholar called Tisdall, W. St. Clair Tisdall. His book is called The Original Sources of the Quran, which goes through all of the Gnostic, Jewish, Zoroastrian, Hindu, and all the other crazy sources that the Quran plagiarized from. It's the best book on the subject. He says there is no satisfactory proof that an Arabic version of the New Testament existed in Muhammad's time. He also says that in the Orthodox Church, the gospel was neglected in favor of legends of saints, which appealed to the popular taste for the marvelous. So people wanted stories. Now, Islam certainly gives people these stories of the marvelous, right? And unfortunately, the church wasn't always as orthodox as it should have been, and it started to deviate somewhat, right? Now, Arabia, as we know from a historical point of view, was a refuge for heretics of different sects that were kicked out of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire became a Christian empire, and all these heretics were eventually kicked out, and they tended to end up in Arabia. And unfortunately, their Gnostic heresies and other heresies became common within that region, and Muhammad learned these because it is clear from the Quran that many of the mythical stories in the Gospels, the apocryphal Gospels, and the heretical Gnostic works reached Muhammad, and he accepted them as true. Right.
Okay,
So, yeah,
before you go to the next slide, let's go
sure,
back to the previous slide.
sure.
There are certain things that I need to add over here. Point number one.
Hmm.
On point number one, there is no proof, I won't even say satisfactory, no proof whatsoever that an Arabic version of Quran was present at the time of Muhammad as well.
Hmm. So he
Quran
couldn't know the New
says
Testament. So where does he get these stories from then? See?
exactly. So there is no proof whatsoever, full stop, that the Quran was present at the time of Muhammad. Number one. Number two, even if we look at it, now I'm going to give you something and I'm going to get a expert on this very soon on my channel. Quran actually says that this is the Quran in the Lisanul Arabiya. This is
Okay.
the claim
Hmm.
of Quran. Lisan literally means tongue.
Yeah,
Okay, it doesn't mean
it's a dictionary.
language.
It's a 20-volume dictionary as well, the most famous one in the Arabic language. Yeah.
Exactly. So Lisan of Arabia means in the tongue of the people of Arab.
Hmm.
If we look at Quran, a lot of people who read Syriac language know the classic Syriac language. They can read Quran better than the people who knows Arabic or the classical Arabic. So classical Arabic was so close to the Syriac language that even in the Syriac language, certain words like Alif Lam Mim, which means alam, which is a word in Syriac language, Ha Mim Ain Qaf Swad, Kaf Ha Ain Swad, Yasin. These are certain words which are actually words in Syriac language, not in Arabic.
Hmm.
And I'm getting an expert to come and speak in this in my channel very soon, and people will be surprised how that language evolved when the Muslims of Arabia went out and proclaimed it as Arabic. So yeah, this is another thing that we will going to discuss about.
Okay.
And And secondly, yes, all the historical evidence says that the first Arabic manuscript of of the Gospel was written as Codex 152, which
Let
is
me
in
get to that. Yeah.
800 and something. Yep.
Oh, I've got that here. Yeah, I'm going to show
Awesome.
that right now. Yeah,
Mike is
yeah.
yours, brother.
Okay, so within this book, the original source of the Quran, we learn that we must not forget that Muhammad was never brought into contact with pure gospel Christianity. All the stories in the Quran, all of the sources of Islam speak only of Gnostic sources. Gnosticism was the greatest threat to face the Christian church in its first 400, 500 years, was a major threat to the church. And all of these heretics ended up in Arabia. Muhammad heard their stories, all of these heretical, false narratives, these false gospels, heard these, incorporated that into Islam, into the Quran and other sources. So he learned all of these things because he never had a New Testament gospel, right? Now, the earliest New Testament Arabic translation is the Mount Sinai Arabic Codex 151, which was written in 687. So this comes something like 55 years after, supposedly, Muhammad died, right? So Jesus is also called Yeshua in the text. Of course, we do not see that Muhammad now, well, within the Quran, he's called Isa. So this is very interesting that Jesus is called Yeshua, and yet he's now called Isa today. So something went wrong somewhere. These are not the same character. This is an actual translation of the New Testament, which gets Jesus' name correct, but the Quran does not. Your thoughts?
Absolutely, brother. God bless you for that. And
Right.
this is the Codex 151, right? This is the
Yes.
earliest codex that we have.
Yes. The earliest codex, the earliest Arabic codex of the New Testament, earliest Arabic translation. So Muhammad could not have known the New Testament. So he was, as we know, taking all of these Gnostic stories, and he got things wrong. But we'll have add more detail as we go. So Quran 25:4, right, says the misbelievers, that's you, say, naught is this but a lie which Muhammad has forged and others have helped him. The accusations were already coming thick and fast to Muhammad that he was making up stories. Quran 25:5, and they say, these are tales of the ancients which Muhammad has caused to be written, and they are dictated before him morning and evening. So again, these accusations against Muhammad flew thick and fast. People are saying, look, he's collecting tales, myths, Jewish myths, these Gnostic myths, and he's simply collecting them and writing them down and doing who knows what with them. And of course, in Quran 37:36, they say, shall we forsake our gods for a mad poet? So these accusations, the Quran tells us already that there were all of these accusations, and we're going to start looking at what else they falsified. So let's look at Da'if Bukhari, Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith 850. There's no point calling it Sahih Bukhari because the moment you quote it, some Muslims are going to say, but that's Da'if, brother. So
Yeah,
why do we even bother to call it Sahih? It's
I have no
Da'if
idea.
Bukhari. I know.
You actually named it right. So this is the new name for Sahih al-Bukhari now. So yeah, I'm gonna do that as well. Da'if
It's
al-Bukhari.
Da'if al-Bukhari, exactly. So Ibn Abbas, Muhammad's cousin, says, Muslims, why do you ask the people of the scriptures? Though your book, the Quran, which was revealed to Allah's Prophet, is the most recent information from Allah, and you recite it, the book that has not been distorted. Allah has revealed to you that the people of the scriptures have changed with their own hands what was revealed to them. And they have said, as regard to their changed scriptures, this is from Allah in order to get some worldly benefit. Very interesting that he also doesn't say that the Quran says that they should ask the Christians. Because Muslims always come to Christians and say, well, doesn't your Bible talk about Muhammad? And we're like, no. But we never go to Muslims and say, does your Quran affirm our scriptures? We don't care. They do.
We don't need to.
Correct. And further, Muhammad's cousin tells us, isn't the knowledge revealed to you sufficient to prevent you from asking them? By Allah, I have never seen any one of them asking Muslims about what has been revealed to you. They realized this long ago.
Wow. I love that part. I love that part.
Right. Now understand, so Bukhari, okay, he also comments and mentions the charge of tahrif, corruption of the Bible. So the word tahrif signifies changing a thing from its original nature. And now there is no man who could corrupt a single word of what proceeded from Allah, from God. So the Jews and the Christians, and this is what Bukhari claims, we didn't change the text. Bukhari doesn't say that we rewrote the Bible and edited the words. He says we misrepresented the meaning. And many, many early Islamic scholars claim that Christians and Jews misrepresent, we misread, we misinterpret. Yet you have new scholars claiming we changed the Bible, we edited the Bible. Now that's a very interesting contradiction. The early scholars were going, but hold on, you are misreading the Bible. The new scholars like, you rewrote the Bible. That is because they'd never seen the Bible. They didn't know what was in these testaments until they actually finally in Spain got hold of one and read it. So we'll continue. We'll go to a man called Ibn Hazm or Ibn Hazm. He is known as the Spanish genius. Okay, this is genius for very low levels of genius, below zero. Okay, this is him on a postage stamp in Spain, a Spanish postage stamp. And here you can see they're burning a Quran, which exactly is the thing you should do to it. Okay, in the 11th century.
Wow. But by the way, you need to show the people the level of his genius. Now you are on full screen. Now show that.
Show what, the poster, the picture?
The level of his genius
Oh,
level.
no. So if it's for very low levels of genius, like below zero, well below zero. When you go minus 1,000, that's the level of genius of this man. And we're going to show you just how the Spanish genius was one of the dumbest people you've ever met.
I love that part.
We're going to get
Carry
into
on,
that.
brother.
So Ibn Hazm, he brings the accusation of textual corruption, tahrif of the Bible. He lived in the 11th century, right? So referring to Ibn Hazm, a very well-known scholar called Gerhard Neers, a German scholar, writes the article, "Why do Muslims believe the text of the Bible has been corrupted?" Very interesting article. So the article tells us, in 1064, Ibn Hazm, from the ruling hierarchy of the Umayyad government in Cordoba, Spain, charged that the Bible had been corrupted and the Bible falsified. This charge was to defend Islam against Christianity because Ibn Hazm finally read the Bible, the first Islamic scholar to actually read the Bible. And he came upon differences and contradictions between the Bible and the Quran. Believing by faith that the Quran was true, the Bible must then be false. He said, since the Quran must be true, it must be the conflicting gospel texts that are false. But present text must have been falsified, he says, by Christians after the time of Muhammad. Notice, this is Niels writing in 1992. And you can find more about this in this document here called Perceptions of Christianity Among South Asian Muslims in America by Paulus Biswas. So,
okay,
notice, yeah.
This is very confusing for me at least, and I think a lot of people also will have very confusing point on it. So since the Quran must be true, and he did not say is true, must be true, it must be the conflicting gospel texts that are false.
Yes.
So he does not actually know that Quran is true. He's saying must be true.
He believes by faith, yes.
By faith. So by faith, Quran is true. Hence, gospel is corrupt. But the present text, according to his time, which he sees in the gospel, is falsified by Christian after the time of Muhammad.
To the time of Muhammad. So we must have a different Bible when compared to the one before. So if we go to the older texts, we should see a difference.
Interesting. So if a Bible in the 6th century is there and it shows a different view than the Quran, which one will be true then? Because 6th century Muhammad wasn't even there. Muhammad was in the late 6th century.
So if a Bible before Muhammad is the same as a Bible after Muhammad, then this man is wrong, and Islam is false, and the Quran is wrong.
Absolutely perfect. Let's do that.
Now notice that other scholars then realized that this argument was weak, and they had to now start saying, remember, even so, don't forget, you got Bukhari, amongst others, is saying that we misread the Bible. He doesn't say the Bible was changed. He's saying we just misread the words. We are misinterpreting deliberately the words. Now this guy says, hold on, you have changed the Bible. Now you've got two different arguments, right? And now he's saying this happened after the time of Muhammad. However, other scholars realize the fault with this argument, and now they've got to claim it happened in the beginning. Understand? This argument,
Ah. So even
you understand?
Hazm is now thrown under the bus because they
But
realize the historically evidence is proving him wrong, so they are going to a different narrative.
correct. Then you'll see this narrative shift and shift and shift. So, recent scholars claim that early Islamic scholars argued that the Christians had misinterpreted the scriptures, right? This is described as tahrif al-mana, a corruption of meaning. This is different from changing the words of the Bible or tahrif al-lafz or tahrif al-nas, textual corruption, which is characterized often as the later view. All right. So Muhammad was very confident that the Quran was the same revelation given by Allah in the Arabic tongue, which had been given to other prophets before him in their language. Muhammad is very confident. That's what the Quran says. Ask the people of the book. Because he's saying, my story is the same. Muhammad, pardon me, didn't know that what he had was myths from Jewish scriptures, which were not canonical, myths from heretics, which were not canonical, right? So the scholars of Islam, they all thought this was how it was until the scholars of Islam read a New Testament and realized that this was entirely false, and they suddenly had to make up a whole bunch of lies.
Interesting, interesting.
Now we're going to get
So,
into
by
those
the way,
lies now.
for the
Yeah.
people who doesn't know these, lafs means haruf means letters, alphabets, words. Okay,
Okay. Good.
so the meaning, uh, tahriful mana literally means interpretation or the meaning. Okay, so these are the Arabic words that he's using, Lloyd is using, taken from the books. So this is what he's using, but I just wanted you to know exactly what's happening. So
Makes
so
good sense. Thank you.
yeah, either it is the corruption of the meaning, but it is not of the word, so word is still the right word. And I think they'll change that the belief later on as well, right?
We'll get through it. We'll tell you the different stories, how these scholars contradict each other. We'll start to get into his story now. So the Quran versus the Bible. So briefly, to put this story forward, so the Quran has a very high view of the scriptures, which they call the Taurat, the Zabur, and the Injil, or the Evangel, the Torah, the Psalms, and the Gospel. Okay. For instance, Quran 2:136 in the Pickthall version says, "We believe in Allah and that which is revealed unto us, and that which was revealed unto Abraham and Ishmael, and Isaac and Jacob, and the tribes, and that which Moses and Jesus received, and that which the prophets received from their Lord. We make no distinction between any of them, because they're supposed to be identical. The one that is not identical is the Quran, unfortunately. And of course, they cannot claim the Quran to be in error, so therefore they have to claim the Christian books are. So it is surprising that Muslims of subsequent generations accuse Christians and Jews of tahrif, and they heavily blame the Apostle Paul for it. He became the scapegoat.
Wow, it's just like a boss in the office where he would try to find an scapegoat and they use Paul. Fair enough.
Yes. So now we get into that. So the main villain in the Muslim allegations of tahrif of the original text, quote unquote, of Allah is Paul the Apostle. Sorry, King Paul. My bad. King Paul. How can I get this wrong? In short, Muslims deceitfully claim to defend true Christianity as they undermine the Christian faith to replace it with Islam. So let's learn about the very bad rabbis and how St. Paul took a bribe from the rabbis.
Oh, wow.
So, yep. He was bribed. Sorry to burst your bubble.
He was bribed by
He
the rabbis?
he was bribed by the rabbis. He became a fake Christian because the rabbis gave him money.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah,
So
and
which
guess
were the
what?
rabbis? But like brother, rabbis were the Jewish rabbis at that time.
Yeah,
So
and
they
guess, and he was the king. Paul was the king. He had all the money in the world, but the rabbis gave him money, so he said, "Okay, I'm going to stop being king. I'm going to go become a fake Christian." I kid you not. We're
interesting.
going to get in,
Let's
we're going to get into all of this. So Ibn Hazm writes, their rabbis, on whose authority the Christians have adopted their religion, the Torah, as well as the books of the prophets, peace be upon them, agreed to bribe Paul the Benjaminite. May Allah curse him. They ordered him to profess outwardly the religion of Jesus, peace be upon him, and to deceive his followers, the Christians, and to induce them to follow the doctrine of his divinity, because they say that Paul invented the doctrine of divinity. They told Paul, "We shall take upon ourselves your sin." And Paul was extremely successful, as is generally known.
Wow. So everything that is written in the Gospels and Acts of Apostle before Paul and the letters and the revelation by John, written by John, is all gone down the drain. But Paul's letters are actually showing the divinity only. Interesting.
Which is crazy. I mean, how can they even make this argument? Because Paul is not the first apostle. He's not the first to write. Yes, he wrote a lot, but certainly other gospels say the very same thing. So yeah, but this is the argument that Ibn Hazm made. This genius of
So,
Spain
so did
wrote.
he not had any of the Gospels with him? Only the letters of Paul that he actually thought that Paul showed divinity. Like, pick up any
We have
Gospel,
no
Matthew,
idea.
Mark, Luke, John, whatever you pick. It's like,
Does the truth matter?
oh
No.
yes, sorry, yeah, logic doesn't work in Islam.
So now there are three main Muslim accusations versus Paul. So Paul is a villain in Muslim allegations of altering the original gospel brought by Jesus, right? Which we know Jesus didn't bring a gospel. Making Christians heirs to an inferior view. So the whole point is to say that Christians have an inferior view of God and that Christian scriptures are untrustworthy. That's the whole point of this polemic. So there are three accusations against Paul that crystallized in the 11th century with Ibn Hazm and a man called Abd al-Jabbar or Ibn al-Jabbar in 1025. So both 11th century figures. These claims are integral to the Muslim doctrine of tahrif, or the falsification or corruption of the Bible. One, they claim that Paul corrupted the laws or the practices of the true religion, abrogating circumcision, introducing unclean foods and Roman customs, for example. They claim that Paul corrupted the doctrine of the Tawhid by fabricating the doctrines of the Trinity and that Christ was divine. And three, they say that Paul corrupted the text of the Bible. Right? So those are the claims generally that Muslim scholars will make against Paul. So let's listen to Qadi Ibn al-Jabbar. Let's listen to his questionable polemics. He writes in his book about what the Jews and Christians believe. And he says that the day before the crucifixion, Jesus was crowned with thorns. Then he was taken around town, seated backwards on a donkey, okay, facing towards the donkey's ass. That's the implication here. And he was given vinegar. Jesus was given vinegar to drink when he asked for water. And then Jesus was taken and he was crucified in a field of melons and vegetables. Did you know that, Adam, that this is what happened?
Um, I- you know, there are certain things when I read, I don't even have a response for them because it's not even laughable, man.
This is this is one of the finest. This is like Sir Isaac Newton. This is like one of the greatest scientists of all time in Western terms. This is one of the best scholars we've ever had. And this is the laughable story of the crucifixion that he thought was true, or that he tried to pass off as true, which is incredible. So
Unbelievable.
Jesus, and so was Jesus crowned with thorns the day before?
No, on that day, basically.
And
And
was Jesus taken seated backwards on a donkey around town the day before?
not at all. That's another lie.
And was he crucified in a field with melons and vegetables?
Not at all. It was on a hill.
Correct. Right? So he claims that Christians abandoned, we'll get more into his story in a minute. So Christians, he says, abandoned the Mosaic law, which is very interesting because Islam has also abandoned the Mosaic law. If you look at Leviticus, Muhammad broke all the laws. For instance, Leviticus says that incest is when you marry your son's wife. Right? That's in Leviticus. When you marry the wife of your son, if you see her naked, that is incest. That is a crime against God. Right? That's unclean. Did Muhammad do that? Yes, he did. Right? He did that, correct, Adam?
Yes, absolutely, brother.
He married his son's wife.
Exactly. And
So,
at the same time, if we talk about the divorce law, Deuteronomy chapter number 24 versus Quran chapter number 4, 2, verse number 230 something, 236 or 38. Um, if a person divorces a wife, she has to marry somebody else, get the divorce before
mhm,
she can come back to the first husband. Deuteronomy chapter number 24, if she marries somebody else and then try to remarry the first husband, it's an abomination according to the
yes,
eyes of
correct.
God. So, and plus camel, eating camel. It is unlawful to eat camel according to the Mosaic law. According to Islam, they actually even sacrifice camel, let alone eating it. So yes, Islam changed so many Mosaic laws. But before we go into more of the subject, even Quran says that Jesus specifically changed, made certain things which were haram as halal. That is Quran chapter number 3, verse number 49 to 50. So Jesus made certain unlawful things as lawful. So Quran acknowledges this fact that Jesus actually changed the laws of the Torah, and it is not saying in a bad way. It is saying in
Hmm.
a good way. And now, how can a Muslim say that you are following Jesus when you are not following the Mosaic law? When your Quran actually acknowledges that when Allah supposedly sent Isa, he was confirming the Torah and to make lawful for your people what was forbidden to you before. And the words are haram and halal in the Arabic. So, and secondly, let me answer Ali over here in the chat. Ali, I definitely hate Islam. I do not hate Muslims. Remember that. I know that Muslims are actually deceived by their scholars because they do not know what true Islam is. So, yes, I have a hatred towards Islam, not towards Muslims. And whenever you want to have a reasonable talk with me, I will allow you to come up and have a reasonable talk. For now,
Right.
watch, learn, and let me know if you want to refute something. I will give you enough time in the end to try to refute with
Yeah.
arguments.
In fact, it is illegal for an imam to reveal the truth of Islam to a Muslim, to a lay Muslim, because to do so would introduce doubt. Muslims are required to have belief without knowledge. This is actually within the Sharia. You can read this in the Reliance. Not going to go there right now, but it's actually illegal for them to be taught by the imam with too much information.
Exactly.
So, so back to the topic. So he, Qadi al-Jabbar, cast blame on Paul for having introduced Roman customs, the prohibition of divorce, for instance, circumcision, and turning in prayer to the east. Okay, the eating of pork, etc. So apparently we must turn to the east in prayer. Apparently we have a qibla. Okay, so not that I'm aware of that, but according to him, and he says that Paul betrayed the first Christians to the Romans. So he says that Paul betrayed the first Christians to the Romans.
He
Okay,
definitely
then
never read John chapter number 4, where Jesus was talking to the Samaritan woman and saying, the time is coming and now has come when you will not worship me in the synagogues or anywhere or in the temple, but anywhere you want to be, and you don't even have to come to any location or face anything. So I think he was definitely not reading the Gospels.
no, they were not. Now, what he does is he casts doubt on the integrity of the Gospels. He claims they are of later origin. So he claims the Gospels were written later. So that argument goes back 1,000 years, okay, to this man. And it was intended to replace the original gospel, which he says was taken by the Jewish Christians when they fled Jerusalem. So according to him, this is his story, right? This is a major scholar. Do you remember the Muqni? Do you remember you remember Ibn Fibn was speaking in the one book Rob Christian mentioned as well, where he goes to, you got to learn this, you got to learn this book, and the Muqni, you need to learn that, right? Remember he was talking about all these books of Islamic law and scholarship you have to learn,
Yes,
and
yes,
these are
yes.
the Mughni was written by this idiot, this Ibn al-Jabbar. So
Nice.
now we have, and he claims there was an emphasis on the Hebrew language, which should have been maintained by the Christians. So his claim was we were supposed to speak Hebrew. And then he says there's a falsehood in the Christology, or the learning, the teaching, the study of Christ, which gives Christ a prophetical evaluation, that we are false in our summary of this. However, there's a scholar called Pines, right, very famous scholar of the subject. He says that all this points, in the opinion of Pines, a well-known scholar in the subject, to a background of a Judeo-Christian community. So what he's saying is that you're having a community that has some connection. Indeed, well, this is a summary of what I have, but so there was a community that had some connection to the Jews and Christians of the day, but a heretical community, right? And so his knowledge was taken from heretical sources that was somehow linked to the original Christian and Jewish sources. So Ibn al-Jabbar misread, he misunderstood, he remixed apocryphal, and Gnostic accounts. And notice there is a Jewish book called the Toledoth Yeshu. It is not taken as gospel, it is not canonical. The Toledoth Yeshu is a series of myths, and you will find stories about Jesus in there because there was a lot of clash between Jews and Christians back in the day in terms of theology and so on. And in the Toledoth Yeshu, you will actually come across stories about Jesus and Jesus being crucified in a field of melons. So this story of Jesus being crucified in a field of melons, because this man obviously never read the Bible, he'd know that Jesus was crucified on a hill called Golgotha. He read the Toledoth Yeshu, which talks about Jesus being crucified in a field of melons, and he steals this and he copies it as fact, and the man didn't even know what's in the Bible.
That's a good one. I did not know about this kind of an apocrypha gospel until you
No.
told me.
So now let's go. Now the major scholar, the way this all started, the source, the root source of this nonsense is a scholar called Saif Umar. Saif means sword. Okay. So Islamic historian, and I use that word very loosely, Saif Umar al-Tamimi from the 8th century, he reports in various folios that were discovered. Okay. So they were discovered in the Islamic University of Imam Muhammad ibn Saud in Riyadh, and they were found in fragments of books called the Kitab Masir al-Wa'isha and Kitab al-Ridda wa-Futuh, whatever that, however you say that. Saif Umar, he was an early Islamic historian, or just outright liar, and compiler of reports who lived in Kufa. Kufa is very important. I'm not going to go into why, but Kufa is actually, if you watch Sneakers Corner, Kufa is very important.
Oh, yes.
Saif Umar discusses Paul's adverse influence on early Christianity in a discussion on the factors which led to the assassination of Caliph Uthman. This is Islam, so it's a mostly peaceful assassination.
Come on, sometimes you say certain words in a statement which are not supposed to be said in a statement, but
Sorry,
emphasize.
but yeah. Okay, so now his story of Paul, this Saif Umar guy, now he's the real interesting kicker here. So his story of Paul is the same as that of a Jew. It's a parallel. It's very similar to an existing story of a Jew called Abdallah bin Saba, because this is pre-Muhammad, right? So no, Abdallah bin Saba, sorry, a Jew from Sana'a, Yemen. And this man was called Al-Sauda because he had a black mother. I have no idea what Al-Sauda means, so I need to actually figure that out. But Ibn Saba, this Jew, is said to have converted secretly, falsely, to Islam in the time of Uthman, but he wasn't a real Muslim. He converted to Islam to mislead the Muslims, right? So he wanted to lead the Muslims astray. So he starts in the Hijaz, he goes to Busra, and then Kufa, back to Kufa. He then continues to preach in Syria, but then he's unable to mislead any of the Muslims. Fortunately, he doesn't deceive the Muslims. He then is expelled to Egypt, and there he teaches that Muhammad was more worthy to return than Jesus. And he lays down the doctrine of the return. He then teaches that there were 1,000 prophets, and that every prophet had a regent so a regent takes care of your kingdom when you're gone, right? So Ali was the regent of Muhammad. And his next teaching was the doctrine that Muhammad was the seal of the prophets, but Ali was the seal of the regents. Okay?
Oh, yes. Hold on, brother. Just give me one sec. Guys, why are
Sure.
you deleting Ali's text when they are very valuable for us? Please don't do that. Ali wrote, why do people hate Islam? Nowhere in Quran does it says to be terrorist. So Ali, based on your statement, even though that somebody deleted this statement, or I don't know who did that and they did it wrong, let me tell my moderators, please don't do that. These guys are here to learn. Let them learn, and I will give them all the chance of the world to prove what they say in statements. Number one. Number two, Abbas Aga. Now I'm going to practice what I believe. I do not know what you believe. I don't know whether you believe in muta or having just sex with animals, which I showed yesterday according to your Sharia. But that is what garbage is, rather than what we are showing. Which we are showing is also garbage because that's your scholars who are saying that. But instead of you saying that this is garbage, that is actually proving our point. Check this out. He just said, Abbas Agha, now I'm going to practice what I believe. Never wrestle with garbage. We are showing garbage of Islam according to him, according
Yeah,
to
we're
a
gonna laugh
Muslim.
at your garbage.
And we are laughing regardless the outcome. So regardless the outcome, you will not come out clean. So imagine this is the same guy, if I'm not mistaken, ran away from a debate twice. and then in both of the times he had no argument. But Abbas Agha, once again, like I said, learn, and when you will have an argument at the end, we will allow you to come up and put your argument in,
Yeah.
and so that you can
Why
actually give the evidence.
why would his scholars write this? I mean, this is crazy stuff, but his scholars wrote this. I'm just telling you what his scholars wrote. All the sources I can provide, he can read them for himself. Now, Ibn Saba develops the doctrines which eventually caused the split between Sunni and Shia. So basically, Muslims blame the split between Sunni and Shia on a Jew, a fake Muslim Jew, right?
Mm,
So now, just as Paul supposedly caused the split between Christianity and Islam, Paul is the one that created the split between Christianity and Islam. A Jew who faked becoming a Christian caused Islam and Christianity to split, just as a fake Muslim Jew caused Shiites and Sunnis to split. Understand? This is their claim. Okay. And also, Paul created all of these different sects because there's only one sect, but Paul split them. And we're going to get into that. Oh, by the way, here's the seal of the prophets. You have a picture.
that's a good seal, brother.
That's a really nice seal. Lovely, lovely beard. Lovely beard. So, so let's look at Saif Umar. And he's speaking about Paul's trick. So he claims that after the ascension of Jesus, Jesus's followers numbered 700 families. Where he gets the number, I don't know. But Saif Umar says that Paul is the king of the Jews. And his name was Abu Shaul. And he urged that the Christians be killed. But they succeeded in escaping. So Paul was the king of the Jews. He tried to kill the Jews, the Christians, but the Christians escaped. So Paul warned the Jews that the followers of Jesus would go to their enemies and convince the enemies to come back to wage battle against the Jews. So the Jews accepted Paul's suggestion of using a trick to stop this from happening. Now, don't forget, previously the Jews bribed Paul, but now Paul tells the Jews. Now it's a different story already. Okay? So Paul leaves his royal position as king, puts on the clothes of the followers of Jesus, and goes to the Christian army to deceive them, according to this historian. Then the Christians catch Paul, and they praise the Lord for the miracle of capturing Paul the deceiver. But at Paul's request, they bring Paul to their chiefs. And Paul tells them that he had met Jesus, who had taken his hearing, his sight, and his reason, but Jesus had given them back. And when Jesus returned these faculties to him, he says he had promised the Lord to serve the cause of the Christians and to teach them the Torah and the rules of Moses. And the Christians were foolish enough to believe him. So on Paul's orders, they build him a house where he devotes himself to a religious life, and then he locks the door, and things change. So he locks the door, locks himself in, and he informs them that he'd had a vision in which he was instructed that the only correct direction for prayer was towards the east. And they believe him, and the Christians believe him, and they leave their Qibla. Did you know we had a Qibla, Adam?
No, but at the same time, what we were doing the other day with Osama Dagdog lies in the Islamic textbooks. And we were going through it in such a way that we would see that in every sentence or in every paragraph, there will be some truth with a lot of lies. So because of
Mm-hmm.
some truth, a lot of people will just take the lies as the truth as well. And here in
Right.
these two paragraphs, you would see certain truths, and then you would see a lot of big lies, big fat lies. And
Mm-hmm.
then suddenly, people would start to believe because, they would even hear from Christians, hey, Paul was persecuting Christians. Ah, see,
Right.
our scholar said it right. And then they would
But no,
believe
they
the
don't.
rest
They
of their
don't get the
scholar's story.
context right. They get the full context completely wrong. Oh, on
Ex-
this point, remember, they literally called Paul the king of the Jews because, can I explain this for a minute before you
yes,
go on?
please.
So, Paul used to be called Saul, and Saul was renamed by Jesus to Paul. It's a fresh beginning, a fresh birth, right? So, he is now no longer his old self, he's his new self, he's reborn, right? This is his rebirth as a Christian. So, he becomes Paul, right? The king. And Paul is not the king of the Jews. He never was the king of the Jews. They confused him with King Saul, who was king prior to King David. And later on, we'll learn how Paul killed himself. He sacrificed his life to Jesus to destroy Christianity. We know that King Saul sinned against God. Okay, he was the king of the Jews. He sinned against God and he killed himself because he wanted to make he was wrong. He couldn't bear the sin. He couldn't bear the shame of having sinned against God, of his shame, and he killed himself. Now, interestingly, you'll notice they said earlier that Paul was a Benjaminite. King
Yes.
Saul was also king. He was from the tribe of Benjamin, and his shame lived within the tribe of Benjamin, right? Paul is seen biblically. You can think of it this way: Paul is seen biblically as the resurrection of the tribe of Benjamin, as the cleansing, the where the tribe of Benjamin now overcomes their sin, and Paul now rises. I don't think he was a direct descendant of King Saul, but King Saul was the downfall of the tribe of Benjamin, and Paul is the resurrection of the tribe of Benjamin. So he comes back and he restores the pride and the honor of the tribe of Benjamin. That's why these little facts overlap. The tribe of Benjamin, Saul, Paul the king, and they get all these facts wrong and they mix them up. And these are complete idiots. They actually haven't read the Bible. They've got little facts and they just make up a story. Does that make sense, Adam?
That, like, I know that they're mixing the two in such a way that for a normal person who has not studied the gospel accounts, the Bible account, the whole Bible, it will
Mm-hmm.
be almost impossible for them to comprehend what's happening.
Yep.
Because and I think, I honestly think even these scholars did not even know what they were doing. They
I
were
don't think
mixing
you did. Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. They clearly never read the Bible, right? So this scholar, this historian, this major of that era, he was a major scholar. This is not a nobody. Understand? He then convinces them he had another vision that all food was not permissible in the eyes of Allah, which is apparently a sin, right? And then he says he had a third vision. He convinces Christians it's their duty to abolish jihad, because apparently Christianity has jihad. So Christians must abolish all forms of violence and revenge. And so the Christians then abolish jihad. We must be weak
Oh.
and never fight. Okay? So they accept this and they abolish jihad. Then finally, Paul has a fourth vision. He wants to reveal only to a small group of people. He chooses 4 people. So he sends everyone away and he chooses Jacob, Nestor. Nestor is Nestorianism. And it's basically, you could view it as a Gnostic, as a heretical Christian sect. Malcolm, and a fourth called the Believer, right? And he tries to convince them that God, in fact, had made himself manifest to them in the person of Jesus. In other words, that Jesus was divine. So now he tries to lie to them and say, hey, do you know Jesus was divine? Because Christians never believed that, right? But
Ah.
so Jesus had appeared and then left from their sight. So this statement causes this fracturing amongst these people. They can't agree and it causes dissension. And this is where the Trinitarian doctrine arose. This is how Paul created Trinitarian doctrine, because of arguments by his 4 followers. This sounds like a completely bogus story, but whatever.
This
Then the
is
believer, sorry,
this
yeah.
is crazy, man. This is did Jibril just came to them and told them everything like this? Because this is not in the ahadith. So where is he? What is
This,
his source?
dude, your guess is as good as mine, but this is what he wrote. This is what he wrote,
I'm
right?
amazed. Like,
And
where the hell? Like, okay, all these Muslims comes up and ask us for the source when we show something, but why don't they ask these stupid uh, idiots? Hey, what is your source for saying such a thing?
no, this is, I don't know why this has never been examined. If people would look at these early Islamic sources, even not even the early ones, all of them, the things they say are so stupid, so outright stupid. But yeah, I know. So anyway, so then the believer stresses that all of this was contradictory. So the believer, the one guy, the believer, he says, no, this is contradictory. This is against the teaching of Jesus. I wonder who the believer could be. And then consequently, the believer leaves, right? And he urges his followers to remain faithful to the only true teachings of Jesus, Islam. And each of the 4 that was taken into Paul's confidence, they gather a group of followers. The believer had the smallest group, the poor persecuted victim. So Paul urges the other 3 groups to fight the believer and his followers, because Paul doesn't want the truth getting out, right? However, these believers flee to Palestine, where they are taken captive by the Jews. Does that story sound familiar? Adam? So convenient, right?
Take wherever you want to take, brother. That's
So convenient. So let's go on. So they then asked the Jews to leave them alone since they only want to live in caves, in hermitages, and on mountaintops, and they want to wander the countryside. And their children introduce heresies into so they go wrong as well, except for a small number, 30 of them, right? Of the believers, a small number of the believers who survive among them and they stay loyal to the original doctrine, Islam. Then some of them escape to the Arabian Peninsula, where 30 of them live as monks, and they finally see the Prophet Muhammad, who they were waiting for, and they believed in him. Now,
ah.
yeah. So, do you understand this story is so whatever? What are your thoughts before I move on?
Man, don't ask me my thoughts right now. They are so disturbed
This
right
gets
now.
weirder. Yeah, but this is the history of the attacks on Saint Paul. So the role of Paul in the corruption of Christianity, according to Saif Umar, in this version of the story, right? This version is other. So he corrupted some of the sacred rules of the religious law, and he spoiled the kernel of the faith. He introduced the Trinity as a falsehood. He introduced the divinity of Jesus as a falsehood. Now let's look at a scholar called Al-Damari and Paul's sacrificial suicide. And the Christians say Christ is the Son of Allah. That is what they say with their mouths, Quran 9:3. And this is found in Al-Damari's Hayat al-Hayawan, quoted on the authority of Al-Kalbi from the 8th century. In the story by Al-Damari, Christians follow Islam for 81 years. Now, where did they get Islam? I don't know. The Quran wasn't around, Mo wasn't around, so clearly Jesus had brought Islam. So in the story, the Christians follow Islam for 81 years after the ascension of Jesus. Then a war breaks out between the followers of Jesus and the Jews. And as a subterfuge, right, as a way to deceive everyone, Paul, who'd killed many followers of Jesus in the war, presents himself to the Christians as a fellow Christian. He's sorry for what he's done. Do you remember the war between the Jews and the Christians and the 81 years where Christians followed Islam, Adam?
uh,
No, right?
uh, yeah, I'm confused because other than this source of Al-Dharmi, I have never heard this story before. Like, where is he getting it from?
Where do they get anything they get? I don't know, dude. I have no idea.
My
I have
friend, what was
no
he
idea.
smoking? I need to smoke that thing as well.
True, man. True. I don't know. So he says that after Paul studied the gospel in their church for a whole year, okay, he leaves for Jerusalem. So there he teaches Nestor, the Nestorian offshoot, right? Those guys, that Jesus, Mary, and God were the three members of the Trinity.
Ah, yes, that is Quran. That is actually Quranic.
Yeah. And so Paul was the one who taught that, not the Quran. Paul taught that. The Quran got it from Paul.
Oh, but Paul forgot to say that in his writings.
Wait, so you're saying the Quran says it, but Paul said it, but when Paul said it, it was false. When the Quran said it, it was right, except it's wrong. I'm confused.
And Paul forgot to actually. Okay, now you it's such a and brother.
Yeah.
Paul taught Mary was God, but
Yes.
yet I cannot find that in the Paul's writing.
Correct. But it's in the
But
Quran, except it doesn't say that.
interesting.
I
Wow.
know. And he leaves Nestor in charge. Nestor is an historian. Notice the Nestorians feature a lot in the Sirah of Muhammad, okay, the biographies, the Gospels of Muhammad. Nestor features quite often, and he's a heretical Christian, right? So he's a heretical Christian who's waiting for Muhammad, who recognizes Muhammad's prophethood and all that blah blah. So he leaves Nestor in charge as his lieutenant, his right-hand man. Paul then goes to the land of the Romans. Where the heck? I don't know. Could have been Rome, I'm assuming. Well, I don't know why I'm assuming. He goes to the land of the Romans, where he taught a man called Jacob that Jesus was not a man, but had become a man. He teaches that Jesus had no body, but became a body, and that he was the Son of God.
Amen. Hallelujah. But like, which Jacob? Which Jacob are we referring to right now?
Jacob. What do you mean you
Which
don't know? Jacob. Don't you? Jacob? You
which
don't know?
Jacob? The Jacob near Abraham or who?
It's
Which Jacob?
Jacob. Stop asking questions. It's Jacob, okay?
Okay, and Rome had like
Are
half
you a
of the
scholar? Are you a scholar? It's
no
Jacob. It's
no
it's the land of the Romans. It's Jacob. Okay,
But
it's
which part of that Roman land? Because that's a huge land now. They have occupied till Jerusalem, all the way from Rome to Jerusalem, and they have a huge
Adam,
half
Adam,
of the
Adam.
Asia with them.
You should know by now. Allah knows best.
Oh no, brother, Allah knows best.
And Allah knows nothing. So anyway, understand this is the level of scholarship. So he then goes to convert a man called Malcolm. And Malcolm, he teaches that Jesus was and is God. So first he teaches this crazy doctrine in front here to Jacob. Then he teaches Malcolm a different teaching. Then he goes to kill himself. So after he kills himself as a sacrifice to Jesus, each of these three disciples begin to call upon their fellow followers, right, to adopt the doctrine they were taught by Paul.
Excuse
And
me,
of course,
hold
yeah.
on. When did Jesus ask for human sacrifice?
Um, um, um,
Okay, all right, fair enough.
um,
And Malcolm is the same as Jacob?
no, they're different people.
No, no.
I don't know.
I mean the same kind of category. We do not know who
Your
that is.
guess is a dude. It's seriously this. Honestly, I wish I knew, but this is their scholarship, quite literally. And this they claim is the origin of the three Christian sects that don't agree because Paul taught three different things to three different men deliberately to confuse them, and this created the split within the church. Now let's
Ah,
look at Al-Tarafi. So we're going to get back to all this. We're going to look into this gets weirder and weirder. There's another version quoted by Al-Qarafi, who died in the 13th century in his polemical work Al-Ajiba al-Fakira, right? So he says that Paul, before he commits suicide, in what he claims is a sacrifice to Christ, reveals the contradictory doctrines concerning Jesus to three Christian kings, because Paul was a king, don't forget. And these three Christian kings used to come on a pilgrimage to Paul every year, where he lived in a hermitage with a monk that he had been able to deceive, to convince of his sincerity and holiness. Did you know the three kings used to come and visit Paul every
okay,
year?
okay. Stop asking me these questions. Like I'm. You have no idea. How, I don't even know where they are getting these sources. Like,
This
is there?
man, dude, this man is supposed to be the greatest, one of the finest, the greatest Maliki legal scholar of the 13th century. This man is a giant of the era.
So,
Understand?
so this giant knew that there were three Christian kings
Kings that came
at
to
the
visit Paul every year.
time at the time of the first century. Christian kings.
Yep.
You do realize what you are saying. Christian and king in first century. You do realize what you are saying.
Um, I find the facts very confusing when I read Islam.
Yeah, no, forget everything else. Christian
Kings,
king
I know.
first century.
Christianity was not, there were no Christian kingdoms at the time.
Brother, that's the thing. In the 70 AD, you have the destruction of the temple of Jerusalem, and then you know that all the apostles
Well, you see,
were
the reason is that they're confusing Paul with another character from the third century.
BCE, not the third century. The Saul of BCE or the Saul of the third century.
A different character from the third century AD. They
Oh,
confuse
so
Paul with a different. So they confuse him with a different Paul,
so now this is a Paul which is of a third century Paul.
something like that. They confuse. They get a hold of. They confuse Paul with at least two different people.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'll
Wow.
go on. I'll go. This is crazy. So after Paul dies, the kings and their followers they started to fight each other, which Paul had intended them to do. And Paul acted in this way because he was a Jew, and he used to fight and kill many Christians, according to this fine scholar. Okay.
Okay.
I should mention that the Melkite bishop of Sidon, Paul of Antioch, okay, wrote three lengthy apologetics to refute this nonsense. So in the year 1200, so around the year 1200, the Melkite bishop of Sidon, Paul of Antioch, wrote three major refutations to try to deal with this nonsense, this absolute ahistorical crap. So on this point, so before I get to some more of these crazy stories, so there's a common element. There are four versions of the story. There's at least four versions, but there are four major versions, right? And which are discussed in Safe's document, right? And there's the idea that the contradictory and the perverted beliefs concerning Jesus. Now, the perverted beliefs is that he was divine, right? That these are caused by the Jews, that the Jews are bad and the Jews have now caused this belief to occur. And in some versions, the corruption of Christian belief, okay, in some versions of the story of the corruption of belief, Paul is present. In others, Paul doesn't even feature, they don't mention Paul. So in some of them, some other source, some other method created the corruption of the Bible and the corruption of Christianity. So Paul is present in some, not in others. Paul uses his conversion as a trick, okay, to lead Christians astray. Now, this, of course, is a way to smear the Jews as duplicitous, dishonest, and Christians as ignorant fools, right? So now, well, let's go to the 3rd century and have a look at St. Paul and a man called Paul of Samosata. Paul of Samosata was a heretic, okay? He taught false Christianity. And these people confuse St. Paul with Paul of Samosata because some of the timing, for instance, do you remember there's the story of Bulus, right? The
In Surah
Quran speaks
Yasin.
of
Yep.
the Quran speaks of the messenger who there were two messengers who were there who Allah sent to spread the message, but they weren't successful, and Allah sends a third powerful messenger. Remember that story?
Yes, Surah Yasin. Absolutely
Right.
correct.
Now, when you so obviously Bulus, right, is Paul, right? Saint Paul. Now, obviously, everyone and Ibn Kathir and all that take that to be Saint Paul. Now, many Muslim apologists today will say, but this can't be because the timing is wrong. There's a 200-year gap. Okay, I've read this. I've read one where the guy says, no, the timing is wrong. It couldn't have been this era. Couldn't have been 1st century. It must be referring to like the 3rd century. Well, there's a reason why it refers to the 3rd century because they conflate St. Paul with Paul of Samosata, known as Bulus al-Shimshati. He was the patriarch, a bishop of Antioch in 260 AD, but he was kicked out of his job by the church council for a heresy named after him called the Paulinist heresy. Not the heresy of St. Paul, the heresy of Paul of Samosata. And they can say they call Paul a heretic because they think Paul of Samosata is St. Paul.
Okay. This is a very important point. So when was Paul of Samosata is
260 to 269. In 269, the church said, "Look, man, you're
so
you're you're
that's
you're out
a
of line."
that's a 3rd century Paul.
Yes, yes, the 3rd century Paul. Yeah.
And what you are saying is that when all these Muslimin uses the word Pauline religion, Paulinish religion,
Yes, they talking about Paul of
they are
Samosata.
they are talking about the Paul of Sarasota. They don't even know what they are talking
Yes,
about.
yes,
So when Abbas Agha is saying to Christians, hey, you follow a Paulinius religion, he
yes.
doesn't even know what he is talking about.
Correct. They're getting it from this story, right? So basically, this guy made up a heresy which is based on what's called monarchianism, which is basically Unitarianism, the Tawhid. Okay, so basically it was he didn't believe in the Trinity anymore. He became a Unitarian, right? The Tawhid, and also a thing called adoptionism, where man becomes God. Basically, Jesus had perfected himself somehow. Jesus was such a cool guy that God says, you know, Jesus, you're so good. I'm going to adopt you as my son and you are now holy and divine. Okay? So he basically combined these two heresies and he started teaching this. And the church council basically said, sorry, but you are excommunicated for just talking absolute nonsense. And so, according to the 19th canon of the First Council of Nicaea, Paul of Samosota's followers could only remain in the church if they were re-baptized. Okay? Now, in some Islamic polemical sources, Bulus al-Shimshati, according to the scholars of Islam, they say that he, Bulus al-Shimshati, Paul of Samosata from the 3rd century, was the first to claim that Jesus combined manhood and divinity. They don't say
In the
Saint Paul,
they say this Paul.
this Paul,
So
correct?
that is why certain people are confusing with the first council of Nicaea to have the divinity
Yes,
of Christ because they are referring to Paul and then they see, oh, council of Nicaea happened in the 3rd century and they find the writing of this Paul of Samosata there and they are
yes.
confused and they are saying, oh my goodness, like like you know how many flashlights are running right now like when you're saying these things.
You understand? So, and he said, the Paul of Samosata said that before, right, the Christians were unanimous that Jesus was created human.
Oh my God, this is my oh my goodness. This is you have no idea. how good this thing is, and amazing. Like all of these Muslims has to learn and understand. And
Saga is talking crap again. Sorry.
who?
Yeah, go on. Go. Never mind him. Sorry. Go on, please. Go on, please. Sorry.
Yeah, and Ali, please listen, brother, and I will give you the link to come up. I know Abbas Agha has no guts to have a talk. He always run. But Ali,
Yeah.
we will have a reasonable talk with you. After this, guys, be nice with Ali. He
So,
does not know. David, he does not know. He does not know. So wait.
okay.
All right.
So these scholars then claim that Bulus was the first to say that Jesus was, combined manhood and divinity. This whole concept of Jesus being man and God. They say that Bulus made this up, and they say that that Bulus said that this Paul Shimshati, whatever, Paul of Samosata, that he had said that Jesus was human, right? So which technically would be true based upon his heresy. So understand. So this is the source of that. Does that hopefully that answers questions for a lot of people? Okay.
Oh yes, it
So
makes so much sense now, brother.
So now understand that this role that so now some scholars are accusing Paul of Samosata of doing these things, but this is exactly the same accusation made against Saint Paul by Safe. Understand the Safe guy, right? So some scholars are blaming one guy, and some scholars are blaming Saint Paul, right? And they both accuse him of being the first to have spoiled the religion of the Christians. The Islamic scholars can't agree, right? But Safe comes afterwards and he goes, "Okay, it's Saint Paul." In other,
He's like, see, I found the truth. This is the truth.
yeah. So understand these scholars. This gets weird. This gets worse. I mean, as I go on, but look. I got two parts to this, right? I mean, so this is the first part with the early scholars, the scholars that no one's heard of, right? And then I go into the scholars that everyone knows, But first, I start with these because these are the source. These early scholars are the source of this stuff. So Saint Paul. Now let's look at Shahrastani and the Milal wa Nihal. Now we spoke about Ibn al-Jabbar and the Muqni and all that, all these famous books written by complete idiots. If they got that wrong, what else did they get wrong? So now let's look at Shahrastani. Thank you, the nemesis of infidels, is saying this is gold. Thank you very much. So, in the view of Shahrastani, who died in the 12th century, and he's a Kitab al-Milal wa Nihal, whatever. Okay, this is based on the main tradition about Paul from Safe, right? So he accuses Paul of having made himself a partner of Simon Peter, and he changed the bases of his knowledge and to have mixed these with the arguments of the philosophers in his own. So basically he connected himself to Simon Peter, and he went and took Peter's ideas, corrupted them, and started teaching, Peter's ideas mixed with his own crazy ideas. So Shahrastani, now I will mention, I don't have proof of this. This is something I need to look into. But remember, there is a guy called Simon Magus in the early Testament, right? Who the early church fathers do call the father of all heresies. And he would seem to be the father of the Gnostics, the man who created the idea of this whole Gnosticism. And he tried to associate himself with the followers of Jesus, two of the apostles, and he tried to buy from them the Holy Spirit. So there may be a link to this claim and the confusion with Simon Magus. But moving on, Al-Shahrastani seems to accuse Paul of a corruption of the scriptures. Yes, Adam?
Jesus save me. You are probably in my backup channel. Come to the main channel. Thank you. Yes, brother. Carry on.
Okay, so Al-Shahrastani seems to accuse Paul of a corruption of the scriptures, and he provides an example. I don't have that example. He mentions certain points from the passage on Melchizedek in the epistle to the Hebrews, right? And which he calls the epistle of Paul to the Greeks. So he doesn't even get the name of the book correct. Claims which he calls the epistle of Paul to the Greeks. He doesn't even know the name of the book. So he gives examples of tahrif by Paul, but he can't even name the book it's in. Okay? And he claims to have seen this. Now, okay, so here's the details if anyone wants to know that. So this just happens to be a reference, okay, that I just wanted to bring up. But let's have so I'm assuming that this man had a greater influence. They all have a motive in trying to undermine Christianity because they want to promote Islam. But let's look at some of the fun stuff that Shahrastani wrote, okay, and why he would try to undermine Jesus and the Bible and St. Paul. Let's have a look at his Milal wa Nihal. Let's have a read here. The general idea is that long before the creation of the world, Allah took a ray of light from the splendor of his own glory and united it to the body of Muhammad from the Milal wa Nihal on pages 132 to 134.
So
And now we have the,
Muhammad, so that
yeah,
means Muhammad became Allah.
he's made from the same essence as Allah.
So he
Yeah,
is Allah.
well, we shall find out.
Okay.
So, but we've discussed this. So now we've got the creation of the Nuri Muhammadi, the light of Muhammad. And Allah says, Muhammad, thou art the elect, the chosen. I will make the members of thy family the guides to salvation. Oddly, it's what God said to Abraham, almost word for word. Isn't that fascinating? And then
Absolutely.
Muhammad, and then Muhammad said, I wonder if that was plagiarized. I wonder. Then Muhammad said, the first thing which Allah created was my light and my spirit. So the very first thing created was Muhammad's spirit before the universe, don't forget. And in due time, the world was created, but not until the birth of Muhammad did this ray of glory appear. It is well known to all Muslims as the Nuri Muhammadi, the light of Muhammad, and blah, 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 blah. So Shakhrastani wrote this absolute garbage, okay? So no wonder if he can make up stuff about Muhammad, he'll make up lies about the Bible and St. Paul.
Exactly, because basically he is going against his own Quran as well, because Allah created
Yes,
Adam first. So apparently he's going against his own verdict.
but
So,
Adam's soul, Adam was made from clay that was animated by the light of Muhammad.
oh yes, oh sorry, I forgot that.
You
But
forget
but
the
Ibn
clay
Kathir,
that Adam was made from was the clay made from Muhammad's light.
but do you know what? Ibn Kathir actually wrote differently in the Qisasul Anbiya. The literal translation of the Qisasul Anbiya, the book name is the stories of Prophet. So he tells that Allah sent angels to get clay from the earth, and
Ibn
he.
Kathir is da'if. Why are you bringing up da'if sources?
Oh,
That's
okay,
da'if,
sorry.
brother.
But you know what? He brought the angels brought clay from different part of the world. That's why you have black, white, gray, red
Suyuti
people.
said that Ibn Kathir was not reliable.
Oh, okay, all right, brother. We will cancel that.
And Allah knows best. Okay? So now let's listen to bad St. Paul, the bad Christian. Paul was a bad Christian. He was a real Christian, but a bad one. And let's learn about him and the Romans. So the other tradition paints Paul as a cunning and roguish Jew, out for mischief. And he's assisting mischief doers. And he's a troublemaker and a power seeker who uses all kinds of tricks to get power. But in this version, Paul is a genuine Christian. He genuinely converts. And because of the Jews angry with him because he becomes a Christian, Paul runs to the Romans for protection. And he goes to the governor with the claim that he follows the religion of Caesar. Because did you know that Caesar was a Christian, Adam?
Brother, that's a divine revelation from Allah, man. I did not know that. You just told me that.
Yes, yes. Uh-huh. So he runs to the governor with the claims that Paul follows Paul becomes a Christian, right? So he tells him that he follows the religion of Caesar, which is Christianity. Now, of course, this cannot be the first century. This guy's talking out of his bum because Rome became a Christian nation, the 4th century or later?
Exactly, and Caesar was nowhere near there, was he?
I
Like
think
according to
when they speak of
history, he wasn't.
Caesar was like pre-first century, as I recall. So, I mean, when you talk of Julius Caesar, so understand these historians are absolute trash. They just write nonsense. So
Yeah,
anyway,
if
so he
I'm
goes to
not mistaken,
Caesar.
that's 70 BCE. 70 BCE, the Caesar,
Correct.
the Caesar.
70,
So
70 BC, yeah. Yep.
yeah, so
So understand
that's great.
the understand. So, but this Paul is in the 1st century, so it's that Caesar, and that Caesar was Nero. But they get that wrong too. They can't decide who was the emperor at the time. We'll get into that. So now you get this confusion. Do you understand? These guys are historians and they're just absolute trash. So then going on. So of course, by doing this, Paul actually is a bad Christian because now he betrays the religion of Jesus. Okay? Don't ask me how. I'm just writing what they said. I don't even understand it. So now, okay, Paul goes to the Romans not out of loyalty to the Jews, but he wants to gain trust from the Romans, right? He wants to gain power and position, and he wants to use them to attack the Jews out of revenge because the Jews try to attack him. Okay? So Paul's corruption of Christianity by introducing Roman customs is because he was not trying to make nice with the Romans. So he said, I'll take some Roman ideas, put it into Christianity because I want the Romans to like me. All right.
Okay, so if you take Roman ideology, then then this is entirely different. Then Christianity has like nowhere near Roman ideology.
Apparently, ask any Muslim, it does.
Okay,
So, so now, of course, this Roman influence involves the abolition of circumcision and of rules. He breaks all the rules of ritual purity and the food prohibitions, and he changes the prayer direction. We no longer pray towards the Qibla that we should. Not that I know that Christians pray towards the Qibla, but whatever. So understand this. Okay, I'll briefly digress and talk about circumcision. So understand, Jews are circumcised on the eighth day, right? Jesus was circumcised because he was a Jew, right? And now understand what you had was the early apostles were preaching to the Jews and they were trying to convert the Jews to Christian to follow Christ. Paul was the apostle that started preaching to the pagans. What they know, the pagans are often called the Greeks. Often when you see reference to the Greeks, they mean the pagans, okay, to the non-Jews and non-Roman pagans, right? Well, to the non-Jews. So Paul started preaching very successfully to the pagans, and he started to convert pagans to Christianity, whereas unfortunately the Jews were very hard to convince, and many of them did not convert. One issue was you now had pagans that were not circumcised and pagans that did not follow Jewish traditions. Whereas you had the Jewish Christians who were part of the Jewish tradition, grew up in Jewish culture, who were circumcised, and now you had two different strands. And the question at the time was the struggle was, are these Christians, these pagan Christians, supposed to become Jews? And Paul said, look, Christianity is not of your birth, it's of your accepting Christ. Right? Am I correct, Adam?
uh, this part that is absolutely correct. That Christianity is not from birth. You have to accept Christ. I
Yeah.
fully agree with you.
So it's not from being born into a tribe. It's not from being born in a country. It's not from circumcision, because he says circumcisions of the heart, right?
Amen.
So listen. So Paul says, look, to resolve this conflict, we can't have two different groups. We can't have two sets of rules. He says so because it is not about acts. It's not about works. Remember, justification through faith, right? Not through
Amen.
circumcision. Circumcision doesn't make you a Christian, right? So he says, look, what we will do is we have to follow one set of rules. We will all follow these rules. We no longer need circumcision. We no longer need to follow certain Jewish customs. I must also note that being a Jew was a legal status under Roman law. It was a legal status. If you circumcised yourself, you could be violating the law and there could be serious punishment for you because you were not a Jew. You're not recognized as a Jew. You were not born a Jew. So the Romans could actually take you and punish you. And this was a problem for these pagans. Understand? This was a legal issue. So to circumvent this, they made these decisions, and this is how they went forward. Okay, so moving on. Now, in Qadi Ibn al-Jabbar's version of this story, right, which is discussed by the scholar called Pines, who I mentioned earlier, and by another scholar called Stern, they present a detailed elaboration of this tradition. However, Qadi Jabbar's version does not contain any references to Paul's influence on the emergence of the Trinitarian doctrine, right? So now you've got these different scholars, Islamic scholars, that are all saying different things. Now, in Saif's version, you have a confusion of elements from this. Okay, so in Saif's theory, you've got this confusion, right? There's the legend focused on the contradictory views of Islam and Christianity regarding the status of Jesus. In one, Paul is a Jew who fakes conversion. In the other view, right, you got Safe Story where Paul is a real Christian and Paul is a fake Christian. You've got all of these, okay? Then you've got Paul who made all these Roman changes. Then you get other stories where Paul didn't make the changes. The changes came from who knows where. Okay. The story of Paul abolishing jihad is specific to the scholar Saif. It doesn't appear in other people's stories, right? And Paul's conflict with the Jews and his connections with the Romans are left out of Saif's report. They come from the other scholars. So these scholars are all making up their own stories just as they go along. So
Hey, brother
understand.
Lloyd,
Yeah.
I need to read a comment. Sorry, brother. He's
Oh
saying,
yeah, this is it.
Lloyd and Adam Seeker, you are quoting opinion 9F Muslim scholars is no different than I quoting Gospel of Thomas or Irenaeus or Pope Urban. Do you take them as authority? You hypocrites. Okay, now the problem is, Mr. Abbasaga, you are the one who can reject all of these scholars and come up and provide us the right story if you so dare to. But this is written in your sources, and these scholars are one of the most prominent scholars of your time. I need to see which scholar of yours denounces all of them. And if not, tell me which scholar agrees to which one. Your opinion matters nothing because you are neither a scholar nor an Islamic teacher to tell us something unless you provide with an evidence. We are just showing how the dogma of Muslimin started when they actually pointed to Paul, as you point many times that Paul started Christianity. So give us the right source and we will agree with you.
Yeah, tell us. I mean, Abbas, have you consulted a scholar? You know, it's
No, no,
very important because
he's
I
a,
always get told, have you consulted a scholar? Well, have you, buddy? Which scholar would you like us to consult, please?
yeah, tell us the scholar and we'll go to that scholar. How about that,
Yep.
brother?
So now let's go on. Let's finish this. I'm about to finish the section. Okay, so now let's talk about the believer. This guy, the believer. So the believer is integral to the story, even in versions in which Paul is not mentioned. So the idea of continuity of this one message from Adam all the way through to Jesus, all the way through to Muhammad, this is there. And the believer, he's the guy that carries this message, between the time from Jesus to Muhammad. And the believer does not figure in Qadi ibn al-Jabbar's version, who's a major, major scholar, right? The believer and his followers represent Islam and the belief in the continuity and the sameness of the theological preaching of all the prophets, including Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad, which is a fundamental doctrine in the Quran, right? In Quran 40:28, for instance, there is a secret believer who defends Moses, right? So there's this parallel that they take where you've got someone who defends Moses who says, would you kill a man because he saith, my Lord is Allah and hath brought you clear proofs from my Lord? So this is someone who speaks up in Moses's defense because he recognizes that Moses is speaking the words of Allah, this believer. And therefore the believers are now defending Jesus by lying out of their bums. So so that ends part one. Any comments from you? I can go on to part two for a while. We've got some time. So what are your thoughts, Adam, so far?
Brother, I think you have elaborated it in much detail, and I think for all of our viewers, it was like, for at least for me as well, and a lot of people said that you are giving gold and you are giving awesome information. Quite frankly, these things are unbelievable in a way because these Muslims still allude to these things. They
Yes.
are not alluding to all of them, and that is why we are showing all of them to see how this new doctrine of Paul corrupted Christianity came up. But
Hmm.
in reality, they right now cannot point out to their own one scholar and say this is the right one,
Yeah.
because Muhammad did not say that, Quran does not say that,
That.
Hadiths does not clearly say that, but rather we have so many Quranic verses which says Jesus confirmed the Torah, Muhammad affirmed the Torah and the gospel. So it's just crazy. It's a nut
Yeah.
job religion. Sorry,
It
thank you.
is.
I just
And you can see that historically, this is crazy. I mean, look, let me go into part two for a while. Let's continue because,
oh
man, it
I
gets
think
even crazier.
no.
Yeah.
Let's bring some people up. Let's see. There were certain people. Let's see if they would like to come up and explain. If not, then we can go to part two. I'm sharing the
Okay.
StreamYard link. Let's see if Abbas Aga can provide us or Ali can provide us with a proper
Yeah.
reference
I mean,
to something.
I'd like historical proof, for instance, that Paul was the king of the Jews, right? The war
Mhm,
between the Jews and the Christians that happened, or any of these facts, these are obviously historical falsehoods, right? It's
mhm,
ignorance from these people. I mean, how are they even going to begin proving any of this?
mhm. Let's see what they give us. You know, that is why the link is in the live stream. Let's see if
Right.
Ali or Abbas could come up, because you have, and Abbas actually says, what happened?
Sergeant Grinch, I get my fairy tales confused. Hansel and Gretel, the Quran, and Revenge of the Nerds are all the same. That's, that's
Oh
funny.
my goodness, that is crazy. And the way Allah says, is also very problematic because when these, especially this Ali would come up and say, "Hey, Paul is nowhere mentioned in Quran." Yes, by name he isn't, but
Mhm.
what does Quran chapter number 36 verse number 14, Surah Yasin verse number 14 referring to then? Because historically it is only Paul, and
Ibn
according to
Kathir
your
says
early
it
scholar,
is Paul,
yes, Ibn
right?
Kathir, and I think even Tibri.
Others say it's Paul. Yeah, there's many scholars that say it's Paul. Yeah.
Exactly. So basically, his scholars are saying that they do not believe that. Then, uh, it's a dilemma to begin with.
He says the
You know.
scholars are not our ultimate authority. He's actually lying because these scholars of Islam, Abbas Aga, really, you need to learn some Islam. You need to learn from me because I can school you, I can teach you Islam. Because I happen to know your Sharia, you don't. Your fiqh, your fiqhin, your complete fiqhin of Islam. So the scholars are the inheritors of the authority of Muhammad. And don't forget, your Quran does say that Allah's hand is over the group, and the scholars will never agree upon an error. And of course, your schools of fiqh were created by the four mujtahids mutlaq, who are the four perfect scholars, the infallible scholars, the absolute scholars who cannot be wrong. Don't forget, the ijma can never be abrogated. Your Quran is abrogated, your hadith are abrogated. The Sharia, which is the final understanding and interpretation of Islam, can never be abrogated because the scholars cannot be wrong. So unfortunately, you are either misinformed or you are lying to us. Now, why don't you tell us which in the comments, please? And give us
Okay.
references to your Sharia, please.
By the
References to
way,
your Sharia.
he won't come up. He's scared. But let's read his verse, and you would see what he said. He gave chapter number 4, verse number 59. I did not. He did. So imagine what he did. He actually cut his own foot with an axe. O you who believed, obey Allah and obey the messenger. Not just the messenger, not just the Allah, but and those in authority among you. Who are the people according to Muslimin who are in authority? The scholars of Islam. They
Mm-hmm.
are supposed to be in authority. Not some king, not some anybody, the people of authority. And then it says,
الأمر
what?
وأولي
Wa uli, and among those who are
الأمر
al amri, minkum, among you.
منكم
Now,
منكم
not me, it is Allah who is saying that. And if you disagree over anything, refer to Allah and the Messenger.
Mm-hmm.
If you disagree, then who should you go to? Quran and the ahadiths and the seerah of Muhammad, right?
Yeah, I can
Now,
actually bring it up in the Sharia, which shows how the scholars have crazy authority, and Muslim students, Muslim lay Muslims like this fool, must listen to them.
exactly, and I just gave him this, but at the same time, Abbas Aga has to come up and bring forth the evidence that he, as a layman, can denounce what Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, Imam Malik, or any of the major scholars actually said something. He has to come up and give us this evidence, not the other way around. You see where the problem lies.
Right. I mean, yeah. No, look, Muslims don't know their own Sharia. I mean, I can show you just, I'll do a very brief thing. I don't want to go into a long story here. Should I share again? Or you
Yeah,
are?
just give me 1 second because I
Sure.
have I have a Ali over here, but I wanna see if he's the real guy. Okay, he went off. All right, he's
Okay.
gone. There you go.
Okay.
Adding.
These scared people.
Man, I just your screen
These
is
people are
shared, brother.
so frightened. Just, I want you to notice this is called in the Sharia, right? This is the world's most famous Sharia manual. And if Muslims
Reliance of
tell me it's
Traveler,
not,
right?
yes, correct. And if they say it's not, please let me know which one is. I'd love to know. Give me the name, right? So it says here in the validity of following the qualified scholars, it says the superiority of the learned Muslim, they're referring here to the scholars, over the devotee, and that's you, Abbas, is like the superiority of the moon over the stars. The learned are the
Ooh.
heirs of the prophets. The prophets have not bequeathed dinar nor dirham, but have left only sacred knowledge. Right? And there's more like this. Okay? There's more like this that says that the scholars are so far above In fact, there's another passage like this that says that the scholars are so far above the lay Muslim as Muhammad is above all of them. So the
Exactly. There are
scholars
so many
are so
passages like
far
that.
above. Yeah.
Let me bring Ali. He's back. All right. Okay, Ali, you are in the live stream. Say something. Ali, now is your time. All right. Perfect. See, that's how it happens.
Ah, this
So
is the words of Muhammad himself. I can show. The
yeah,
Prophet
brother,
himself
check this out.
says,
Brother, hold on,
sorry,
hold on.
yeah, okay.
Check this out. Check a true Muslim. Adam,
Uh,
fuck you retarded. Fuck to the Pakistan. Check this out. So what should we do with this guy? Now, this is the type of people that comes up to try to
there,
refute Islam, rather not refute. They are actually acknowledging that whatever we are saying is absolutely true. It is the right, and we are actually on point because they are the ones who proclaims Islam to be the worst religion in the history of mankind. Because imagine his statement is not just about me; it's about all Pakistanis. So he's a racist against Pakistan in itself, in essence.
you know,
So if these are the people who are going to proclaim Islam, I don't know what kind of Islam is.
this is
Imagine that.
welcome. This is Islam, people. Welcome to Islam. Have a look. The religion of knowledge. Don't forget. The people of knowledge know nothing,
All
right?
right, so let me ban his 20th account. I have banned maybe I don't know.
Oh, I saw him say that. Oh, yeah. Poor
Yeah, and
guy. Poor guy.
I have banned so many of his accounts already. This is a 20th account that I'm banning, and like this these are the kind of people that I deal with every day. I have received another text yesterday, um, which had all the kind of good private parts of their Muslims mothers and sisters and daughters that
Yeah.
was proclaimed in that particular text. And Abbas Aga will never show up. This
No,
Ali,
perfect. Abbas Aga is a coward. He won't meet me to discuss the Sharia. They're cowards. And of course, they have no knowledge, right? This is the level of their scholarship. It's only slightly better than their scholars,
yeah,
or slightly worse.
they are just good in the typing in the live chat. They just want to change the topic, and that's why I told all my moderators not to mute them. Let them say things. You know why? Because it exposes them.
Yeah.
Now imagine what Abbas Gaga said when we have shown this all. Adam, I am not obligated to defend scholars. Now come up and give your opinion then, based on Quran and Hadith, how Paul corrupted Bible, because
Where does the
you
Quran
call us.
say Where does the Quran
Exactly.
say that? I'd love to know. I
So
mean, this is just opinion. This is just words the guy's saying. It's like, give the evidence. Show us the evidence. For
exactly.
instance, it says here, the Prophet said, and Abbas Aga, you are not favored by Allah. Allah thinks you're an idiot. Okay? Because your Prophet says in your own Sharia, the Prophet said, whoever Allah wishes well, he gives knowledge of religion. And he said, the superiority of the learned Muslim over the devotee is as my superiority over the least of you. That's the word of Muhammad. Okay? So the Prophet said, whoever Allah wishes well. Now, you know nothing of your religion, so Allah doesn't wish you well. And the superiority of the learned Muslim, that's the ulama, your ummah, right? Sorry, your ulama, right? Your scholars, over the devotee, which is you, is as Muhammad's superiority over the least of you. So your scholars are very, very authoritative, and you have to trust them. You're just a mukallaf, right? So you're nobody, right? In fact, you're at the lowest level of knowledge in Islam called the ibadah, which we all know, the absolute lowest level of knowledge. Your scholars are far above you. They have secret knowledge, as you know. So
And
anyway,
by the way, Abbas is also a Pakistani, and the Ali guy, who's also a Muslim, he just effed all Pakistanis apparently. So in that Pakistani, Abbas Agha is also mentioned because he is a Pakistani. Now, secondly, Abbas Agha, let me say something. Let's see if you can refute me from Quran. Kana waladul Muhammad kalban. Let's see if you can refute this from any Quranic verse. Anyone who knows Arabic already know what I said. Let's see if Abbas Agha knows what I said, and let's see um, if he can denounce it, or if he can give me a Quranic verse to refute this. Brother, do you want me to show your screen?
Yeah, we can go on. Should we go on? Should we go on to the next for a few minutes? Go and talk about part two and just
Sure.
show some more stuff.
Sure, I just wanted them to actually have the time to refute, because I
Yeah,
don't want.
well,
Hey, the
they're
skirt is
wasting time.
open. The skirt is open, man.
Yeah,
This is
sorry guys. So
shame, shame.
you know how they like to present the Kaaba, this beautiful guys. This is the holiest place in Islam. Look at it, and be in awe.
Man, you are
Isn't
showing the
this?
private part of Kaaba, man. Don't do that.
This is incredible. This is incredible. This it's so beautiful. It's so. Can you see the exalted cranes here in the back?
Oh my goodness. Oh, they are exalted. How many cranes are there? One, two, and three exalted cranes are already present.
Oh yeah, exalted cranes. We have I don't know. This is yeah, yeah, yeah. Makes you want to kiss it, doesn't it, Adam?
No.
Oh, disgusting. Good God. Okay, so let me go and do. Let me go into part two. Let me run through some other stuff. Okay, so we know that we learn now that Paul is the king of the Jews, and they confused him with King Saul. That we know that they claim that Christians followed Islam for 81 years, and there's no evidence of that, none whatsoever. They claim that Paul was a wicked Jew who committed suicide. We know Paul was beheaded. Everybody knows this, except all of these amazingly knowledgeable Islamic scholars who are clearly as stupid as donkeys. Then you've got Paul, who was a good Christian, who influenced the Romans to try and kill the Jews. We know that the Romans killed Paul, right? And blah, 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 blah. But also, what is interesting, as we said, Paul is responsible for the Crusades, which happened to defend Paul's lives,
Wait,
and
wait,
that the
wait, 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 wait. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That part, that part.
that comes at the end.
Crusades.
So yeah,
When did Crusades happen?
the 1000s, 1095 was the first Crusade, the
Okay, so
11th into the 11th century.
how did Paul got responsible for Crusades?
Remember, I said the kings knew that Paul had lied. The kings knew that Christianity was false, and the Muslims were going to come to Europe to show everybody how they had the right message and Paul had given the wrong message. And the kings, the people in power, knew, and they couldn't afford the people to know, so they had to raise an army and they attacked the Muslims to defend this lie.
Okay. Rewind. So the Muslims who came out of Makkah went in conquering all the lands up till Spain, all the land of the Asia, and then the
Uh
Africa,
huh.
north of Africa, conquering them, slaving
Turkey, Asia
them, killing
Minor, yeah,
them, all of these. Then they went to Spain, and
yeah.
then those kings said, oh, these people who are raping our wives and the children and sisters and daughters. And by the way, there is a Turkish drama that is running in Turkey with multiple translations as well, showing this, not just me saying. These
Mm-hmm.
Turkish dramas are actually showing this in TV. I forgot what's the name of that Turkish drama.
I think I know what
If
you're talking about.
if somebody knows, please tell me. Let me see. Hold on. Let me just say that, because now I said that, so I need to say that. Uh, Artugul. Artugul. In the Turkish drama Artugul, the king Artugul had Christian pastor's daughter as his Malakat al-Yamin. Pope's daughter as Malakat al-Yamin, as the right hand possess. So they are showing all of that, and these Muslims are going back to their original Islam in the Islamic worlds, and they
Yeah, this
proclaim differently in the West. But then Paul,
this guy is really out of hand. You should see his messages. I've no, I mean, but honestly, crazy stuff. You've really upset someone tonight.
okay, uh, okay. By the way, this guy whose name is this. Imagine, you know what? He doesn't even know what he is saying. Let me show his message. Where is it? There you
Yeah.
go. Check
Abbas
this out,
Aga,
guys.
he claims I'm ignorant when I'm reading. You know what? When I read Islamic sources to you live, showing them on the screen, I am reading ignorance to you. Okay? Because Islam is ignorance in writing, as you
So,
can see.
brother, hold on. Let's deal with this guy first, who
Yeah.
actually did the. So now imagine what he is saying. Now this is pure Islam, guys. This is the Islam that we are standing against. This is the
Yeah.
Islam that we are standing against. Because of my actions, this is what he is doing with my mother. That is why I cannot show my face, because my mother and my family is in Pakistan. And these
Hmm.
kind of people live in Pakistan, and
Hmm.
they, even though that my mother is a Muslimah, they will not leave her alone because of this teaching of Muhammad. That is how demonic this teaching is. This is how demonic this teaching is. That is why
Yeah.
you have to hate this teaching from the core of your heart, instead of giving us a refutation, an argument, and say, hey, you guys are wrong. I will prove you that you guys are wrong. There you go, the evidence. They are coming up with these kind of things. And this is in
Yeah.
the Western world, this might be very less. Where I live, this is absolutely daily thing. Now let's go to Abbas Aga. You are ignorant. With selective memory, do you not know that scholars disagree many times in the understanding of Quran and Sunnah, just like Christian Jewish scholars of the past? Okay, Abbas Aga, like I said before, instead of just chanting in the chat, I have asked you to come up and prove why you call Christianity as a Pauline religion. And you have done that in the past so many times. And I have had one debate. After that, you are running like a coward with the tail behind your legs every time. Why? Why don't you provide evidence and put all these scholars into hell? And I would love to
Yeah.
see that, how you do it. Brother, carry on. Do you want me to show the
Yeah.
screen again?
Yeah.
There
Why
you go.
not? Yeah. I want everyone to know on this point, the single most important doctrine of Islam that most people aren't aware is called commanding the right and forbidding the wrong. Commanding the right is to do, basically enforce the Sharia. Forbidding the wrong is to prevent anyone from violating the Sharia, right? And if you're not Muslim, understand the Sharia applies to you, okay? And Muslims have to force it upon you. Now, I want to show you here. This is within the reliance of the traveler. This is the escalation within how Muslims are to deal with this. First of all, Muslims have to explain that something is wrong. So first they are supposed to say, well, Adam, you shouldn't do that. It's not nice. You shouldn't. And then they need to and when that doesn't work, they need to forbid the act verbally. They need to say, Allah says, and the Quran says, and you shouldn't do this. That's the next step. And then they must censure with harsh words. Now, understand when you go into the text which explains this, right? This is the index, just the topic index. It states that censuring with harsh words means they have to revile you, abuse you. They must treat you with insults and abusive language. This is required within Islam. Understand? They are following the rules to the letter. Then they must right the wrong by hand. I will leave it up to you to decide how Muslims are to right the wrong by hand. I'm sure you can figure it out for yourself. Notice that intimidation, Islam being the religion of peace, okay, so it's peaceful intimidation, I'm sure, comes after righting the wrong by hand. Okay, I I thought the logic was first comes intimidation, then comes assault, but apparently you right the wrong by hand, then you intimidate, and then you assault. Now understand, assault, if that doesn't work, you then go get weapons. And if that doesn't work, you get a bunch of buddies with weapons. So Islam teaches the religion of peace. Okay. When I say peace, I mean PISS, teaches this force of arms and assault, the religion of assault. This is the sequence that Muslims are supposed to follow. So It is not an accident that they behave and say the things they do. We can go into the text and I can show you it says exactly they've got to fight, they have to kick, they have to hit, they have to break, they have to destroy, they have to get weapons, they have to attack. Okay? This is what they do. This is why they are following this, because they are told to.
Absolutely, brother. And by the way, the messenger of Allah was commanded to fight. And because this, and I know what you are showing is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely correct. But once again, let's go to the Sunnah because that's what Abbas Agha accepts. This is Sahih al-Bukhari, and this the chapter number is 8 of the Book of Faith, the first book, the chapter number 8. It says, "Why would you not fight?" They are not doing not against the people when the Messenger of Allah declared, "I have been dictated to fight against people. So as long as they do not say there is no God but Allah, and he who profess it,
Professed it.
was granted full protection of his property and life on my behalf." So when can you have protection of your life and property? When you profess there is no God but Allah, and he who profess it was granted full protection of his property and life on my behalf. Imagine that, brother. Imagine.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only way that you can actually accept or save your life. There
Mm.
is no other way. Let's see
Yeah.
if there is any other way. Okay,
No,
let's see if there is
there's
another
no other
way.
way.
This is hadith is narrated in multiple times over here. 21a, 21b, 21c. All of them are actually saying the same thing. 22, 23a.
Wow.
All of them are saying the same thing. All of them until comes the chapter number 9. So how many do I need to show that Islam teaches that you can be violent in any way possible
Yeah.
unless person accepts Islam? Brother Lloyd, you want to show something?
Okay, yeah, let's jump off that topic. Let's just go back. I'll do a couple of pages, a few more pages to show you some of the craziness from part two. And these are from the more modern scholars. So we'll jump now to most of the more modern scholars. So we'll start looking at it from the scholars we all know, like Ibn Abbas, Ibn Kathir, Qurtubi, and so on,
Okay,
Suyuti,
no,
and
no,
so
no,
on.
brother. I'm so sorry. You shouldn't do that right now. Let's do it part two because this will go
Okay,
in.
okay,
Yeah, we'll do that in part two because this is very interesting. I don't want to miss in the middle. Do not want to stop
okay,
in the middle.
okay. No, because there's
So
some interesting stuff as well. It just goes on. It's really interesting, and it's
yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah.
like,
Ibn
good grief,
Kathir,
these people are stupid.
Abbas Agha loves Ibn Kathir. So Abbas Agha, come back next time and let's see how much you would like Ibn Kathir. What is Abbas Agha saying? Hold on. There is somebody responded to Abbas Agha and I must have missed his message. Let's see. Did I miss his message? Okay. I have no idea. Did I miss
Yeah.
his message?
Gedalia says, very true. Abbas Aga, how can you debate on Paul? You just said the scholars cannot be trusted. And so, because Paul is not in the Quran, you have no Islamic info to use.
Exactly. So I don't know what he is trying to
Exactly.
debate on. I missed his message and I don't even know where it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Check this out. Adam, do you want to debate me on Paul? By the way, you lie. I never run from you. Abbas Agha,
So, what
I have
sources is he going to use on Paul?
no, hold on. I'll talk about the Paul later. I have two debates on my channel in which you are there. In the first one, you ran away. In the second one, you ran away in the very beginning. So you are a coward and you did run away twice, and those debates are live and they are on my channel. Now, let's talk about Paul. So, according to your religion and according to Islam, if you do not believe your scholars, you have to go to Quran. So if you go to Quran, the only thing that we see in Quran that Quran actually proclaims that the Havariyun means the disciples of Jesus will be uppermost till the day of resurrection. Number two, it says in Quran, chapter number Yasin, verse number 14, what is Allah talking to and talking about in Surah Yasin, verse number 14? What is the Allah talking about? over there if it is not Paul, and hence you have a big dilemma. By the way, Quran talks about in chapter number 3 verse number 55 and other verses of Quran how the Lawahariyun means the disciples of Jesus were the true Christians. They were following Jesus. And if you look at Siratul Nabi by Ibn Ishaq, you will see that he agrees 100% that Gospel of John, which was written by John, is a true gospel of Christ written by John. So even his early scholars disagree with this guy. I don't know if he has a divine knowledge of something which we do not, but maybe he does. So we have another guy. I think he is the same Pakistani who hates Pakistanis, but let's see if he's different. I want to give him a chance. Let's see. All right, speak. Are you the same or different? Let's see if he changes his name or if he shows a finger or if he actually talks. Okay, he's the same guy. And by the way, this his name this time around is Rashid. So let's see, guys. Everyone, give some roses to Rashid. Rashid A. So remember, guys, if you see a comment from Rashid A, is the same guy who comes in and shows finger, which he gives to Muhammad because we were talking about Muhammad. So he fingers Muhammad every time. All right. So now this is about Abbas Aga. He runs left, right, and center, but doesn't have the courage to come up. Brother, I think any last words before we depart, because these Muslims have no courage whatsoever.
No surprise.
Yeah, that's a good one. No surprise. So when are we doing the part 2, brother?
Next week, what do you think?
Same day?
Yeah, Thursday, probably. Yeah, would that be okay with you, or Thursday?
Awesome. All right, guys. Next week, same Thursday, we are coming for part 2. And for all the Muslims who have watched or who will watch, come up with a proper refutation. Give us the evidence. When the
Yeah,
gospel was corrupted, when the New Testament was corrupted, how it was corrupted. Was it corrupted before Muhammad or after Muhammad? Provide us the evidence. We'll be waiting. And if you say it is a religion created by Paul, you have already seen your theology and your early scholars, they don't agree with each other. Everyone tries to give a shot in the dark
crazy.
and it hits nowhere.
And these are historians. It's crazy. These are historians. You're like dumbest
Absolutely.
people ever.
Absolutely. By the way, the Somali Christian TV channel, they are doing an awesome job. They are also apostates from Islam. They are murtad, a very nice couple. And Somali Christian TV, whenever you feel, let me know. I will connect you with Brother Lloyd. He will demolish Sharia
Yeah.
with you guys. So they are doing very good, brother. All
Okay,
right.
no, thank you.
So, Brother Lloyd, everyone is liking you. Jesus is my Lord. A lot of people, they loved you, how you speak, how you give the evidence. And this is what it is. So that's the reality.
Yeah. I will
And
provide all the links. Can you drop it into the description afterwards so everyone can download the documents and check for themselves everything I've said, all the links to all the documents I've used here. I'll send you this by email, okay?
absolutely, brother, do that, and I will upload it. You're gonna upload it in your
Uh,
cloud.
no, I'll send you I'll drop you the link in Skype. You can just drop it into the description of this video if you can do that,
All
and
right,
then just so everyone can download everything. Pardon me.
awesome. So, guys, in a couple of hours, you will have this presentation and everything and all the links, so you can download it. Thank you so very much for watching. Pray for me and Brother Lloyd, and God bless you all, and have a blessed time. Brother Lloyd, Takbir,
Um,
Al Masihu
Akbar
Akbar.
Azim.
No, that's Al
So
Masihu Akbar.
okay, so now you're confusing me. So so isn't it Yeshua
Yeshua Akbarul Azim.
Yeshua Akbar Al Azim. Yeah.
Amen, brother. You
So,
got it. You got it. You got it. God bless you. God bless everyone.
thanks. God bless everyone. Thank you.